what's going on, everyone? Mike Plachter, that flipping accountant, and welcome to my podcast, Flipped Off. Today, I got a really special guest today. One of the first guys I met in the business. His name's Dennis Kelly. He's a fellow investor, good friend of mine. We met at the local RIA, and we actually have similar, the same business coach. So we got all the technical difficulties out of the way, Dennis, and welcome to the show.
Yes, we did. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Yeah, man. So, just tell everyone a little bit about yourself, how you got started and stuff like that.
So my name is Dennis. I've been in business for about almost 3 years now. Before this, I was a union iron worker in the city. I did that for about 7 years. And I always knew I wanted to get into real estate, more specifically rental properties and things like that. It took me a while to make the jump. At first, I got my real estate sales license. I did that when I was in apprenticeship school, thinking I wanted to get into the sales side of the business and things like that. I dabbled in that. I realized sales wasn't really for me, but I still pay my dues every year. I still continue with the continuing ed, all the networking. So I still hold my license today. I think it's great for all the networking, and it definitely got my foot in the door to start. And then after I graduated my apprenticeship school from ironworking, I bought my first property. It was actually a flip. Everything that could go wrong went wrong, but it was a great learning experience. And then it was just a snowball since then. And I do more rentals now. I do flips here and there. If one falls in my lap, I'll do it, or I'll partner on one. But I'm really just looking to buy and hold.
Awesome. Before we get into the real estate stuff, I guess tell me a little bit about like the ironworking, your little background there, like how long were you in it? And I guess what is an ironworker? A lot of people might not know. Might just think of like a general contractor or something. But, So what is ironworking?
Yeah, when I first met my wife, I told her I was an iron worker, and she didn't even know what that was. Like something with iron, or what do you do? Like,
like you build skyscrapers. You just like the big beams that go up into there. Like I don't know. That's what I think of.
That's exactly what it is. So I'm sure a lot of people have seen that picture of all the construction guys sitting on the beam in the sky eating lunch.
Yeah.
So that
They're
was
building
me.
like the Empire State Building or something.
Yeah. So that's what I did. Obviously, that picture was taken many years ago, and now we wear safety harnesses and things like that. But we erect the steel structure of the building. Any building you see in Manhattan, as long as it's steel, we erect the steel structure, and then we move on. And then all the other trades will come in underneath us: electricians, plumbers, sheetrockers, and they'll finish off the building. But we just handle everything steel as far as all the welding and things like that.
Okay. How long were you in that for before you made the transition? And like, what was that transition like, from, being in the contracting side of the business, and then getting just into real estate investing?
Yeah. So I look back at it as, because now I'm dealing with these single family houses and, coming from building skyscrapers. And then I look at these single family houses made out of wood. It's like, it takes a lot of the stress out of it, so like if something goes wrong on one of these little houses, it's only how big and it's just wood. Thinking when I was doing literally 100-story buildings out of steel, it's a whole different ball game. But like I said, I was doing that for about 7 years. It took me 4 years to finish my apprenticeship school. My first year wasn't counted. I forget exactly like what it was called, because I got like, drafted like a year early or something like that. And I knew I wanted to get into real estate. I wanted to make the jump. I love ironworking. I actually still pay my dues to that union today. I made lifelong friends. I still talk to them and hang out with them today. But I knew I didn't want to do it long term. It's a young man's game, ironworking. Especially, as you get older, it just gets tougher and tougher. So I really wanted to get into real estate. Like I said, I got my real estate salesperson's license. I dabbled in that a little bit, realized sales wasn't for me. And then I actually bought my first property from my broker, who was also a wholesaler. It was a contract vendee vacant foreclosure. The next town over from where I grew up. I bought it sight unseen.
That was the Ronkonkoma flip, right?
That was the Ronkonkoma flip. Yep, but
Nice,
bought it
nice.
sight unseen. Big mistake in hindsight doing that, but like I said, it was the next town over from where I grew up. I knew the block. One of my best friends lives right around the block. So I was like, this is it. Let's just jump into it. And yeah, that's how it all got started.
That's crazy. I mean, there's no better place to get started than like in your backyard. I mean, like you said, you know the neighborhood, you know the good blocks, the bad blocks.
Exactly.
You know,
I was just
the
comfortable
numbers.
with it.
And then, how did you transition out of like the ironworking full time and like were you doing this on the side? Is that and that's a big time commitment. Like were you doing it on the side or did something like you get like injured on the job so you had the free time or something like that?
Yeah, so that's kind of what happened. I broke my ankle, and I had a bunch of free time from, surgeries and things like that. And during that time period, I actually went back and got my degree in architectural drafting and design. And while I was out, I figured, what better time than now to actually pursue those goals of, buying these fixer-uppers, knowing that, if I can fall back on ironworking if I needed to. That's what paying my dues and keeping all that up is all about. So that's when I made the jump. After I broke my ankle, after I was all good, bought my first property, and that's it. Trying to just keep the momentum going and things like that, so I don't necessarily need to go back to ironworking is the goal.
When was that? So like what year did you like I guess do your first flip and buy your first rental?
I believe that was 2020. I think
Wow.
or maybe it was like the winter of 2020, spring 21 when I sold it. I'm trying to think, but yeah, I think it was around that time. Because I started working with Carl a few months before that.
Oh wow. So yeah, we started at similar times. Like I started during the pandemic. It seems like you did like like the early days, but I wasn't coaching with Carl until like the end of the year. So like, pretty much 2021.
Okay.
So we started at the same time, but like, I mean, you got a lot of rentals. You got like half a dozen at least. I mean, like, how did you get so many? Did you buy like a bunch up front? Or did you buy like what's the timing of it? Did you buy one in the first year, two in the second year?
Yeah, so it looks like if you just look at a timeline, it looks like I started working with Carl and then right away started scooping up these houses, but it wasn't like that. Like I said, I had my salesperson's license and I've been, podcast books for a good solid maybe 5 years before I even started working with Carl. So it was about 4 to 5 years of education, getting my license, getting my degree, podcast books. Then I signed up for Carl, and that just kind of, put it all together. And then
You
a few
do like
months
the
after
networking
Yeah.
stuff. Really, when Carl, like when you were coaching with him, yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm somewhat similar. Like as far as the education and self education. I mean, as you know, like I was, reading all the books, doing all the YouTube videos, but it was like for years, like many, many years, obviously, staying focused in accounting and stuff, but it was almost to a point where it was like just procrastinating, you know what I mean? Like, I wanted to do it, but I just didn't know how. And, that it's kind of like, either, piss or get off the pot type of thing. So when the pandemic hit, it just really was like, this is it, you know what I mean? And I really started, moving from there. So how did you find those deals? So I know you bought a few up front, in 2020. And I think you've been getting at least one or two every year since. So how have you been finding them?
Yeah, like I said, my first deal was from my broker, who's also a wholesaler. I belong to a small mom and pop brokerage out in Shirley. And really just networking. I have bought deals off the MLS. Some people say, oh, you can't find deals off the MLS, but I make an offer on everything. I don't lowball them where to the point where they're not going to consider it, but I'm not shy just to make offers on anything. And if something sticks, then we'll continue the conversation. But I've also picked up some early on through my contractors that I've used.
Oh, that's right. You're telling me that.
Yeah, a lot of guys, especially contractors, they'll think, oh, I'll just do all the work. Let me buy some rental properties. Blah blah blah. I see it on TV or whatever the case is, and then after having it for a year, 2 or 3 years, they realize it's more of a hassle than what their cash flow really is. Once they consider all the other expenses and things like that. So I bought a couple from them actually too. But yeah, really just the network I would say is the biggest where I found most of the deals.
100%. Like that, I didn't realize that when I started out, and I was like every other investor. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get a website. I'm gonna, do direct mail. I'm gonna do cold calling. I'm gonna do like all these marketing strategies to get deals, and those are great. I'm not saying anything bad about them. I mean, some are very expensive, so you better have deep pockets. But the one thing that working with Carl that he kind of drilled into my head early on was just growing your network. You know what I mean? And like my first deal was from a realtor, and it was off market. So a lot of people will say, oh, you can't get deals from realtors, MLS, it's overpriced. And a lot of that's true. But when you really dig into the details, there's a lot done through realtors off the market as well. And through connections. And it's not just realtors, it's attorneys, it's like you said, contractors. So that's huge. Is really I tell new investors all the time, they call me up and they'll say, hey, I'm doing cold calling, I'm all this stuff, and I'm like, that's great. I hope you do it, but you get into the networking and start growing your Rolodex of investors and wholesalers and a real estate agent, everybody. I mean, you got to do it all. And it's a lot of work in the beginning, but it pays off, and it takes years. It's like a big, it's like a snowball. You're just rolling down that hill. It takes, or like a rock or whatever the analogy is. It doesn't really matter, but it takes a lot of work to get it going, and then when you have it going, then it's a lot easier. Things come to you.
To be honest, I really don't even do much marketing right now. It's just word of mouth, networking, and a little bit of social media that I just started dabbling in. But yeah, a lot of it's just the networking.
That's crazy. You don't do any marketing at all? Like no, I drive for dollars, any kind of direct mail?
So
nothing.
I drive for dollars. I didn't really consider that marketing because it's kind of just, it's nothing that I really pay for. It's me just driving around in my target areas where I am anyway. And I'll drive around some of my nearby blocks. If I see a distressed property, I'll write it down and look it up. But I do that, yes. And I'm actually on shopping carts now. That actually just happened today, though. So
like out in like where we're investing out there, like at a local grocery store or something.
Yeah, grocery stores out in the Shirley area.
I've thought about that. I got to pick your brain on that one day because I was going to do something like that at some point. Just don't know exactly what I'm expecting from a budget perspective. Mm-hmm. Because I kind of looked into doing this, but like on those placemats, like a diner, you look down at the placemat, there's like a local business advertising, and it was kind of expensive. I think it was like $1,500 a month or something like that. And I was like, I don't know, like it just didn't seem worth it. So I'm not going to do that at the moment. But maybe one day if I just have the money just to get the presence in the marketplace, like this is who you are, who I am. So I think I might do that at some point. But
exactly.
Yeah, that's a good idea though.
More of like it's more of just like a branding play. You get your face out there a little bit, and then if they see me on social media or if they ever call me or my agent and I show up, they're like, oh, I've seen this guy around. He must be legit.
Yeah, and you got to do what works for you. Like I was telling new investors, like, every marketing strategy, it's either time or money. And, if you don't have, like me, like I don't have the time. So it's hard for me to do a lot of these marketing strategies, but you got to do what works. Having the 2 kids and just being busy with work and stuff, like it's not easy for me to just get out of the house and, for 3 hours and then come back. You know what I mean? Because I'm working.
Yeah. And you're involved with the text platform, right? Which I like.
Right. So that's where I was going is like, you got to do what works for you. And right now what works for me is mainly texting is what I'm doing. I'm doing texting to homeowners directly. That's on one front, and then there's a lot of conversations with them, and that's all I could do it here. And then also with realtors as well. So all that could be done. I want to say remotely, whatever you want to call it, but it could be done like this way. Whereas I don't have to go as often into the field because you got to leverage your pros and cons. Like this is what works for me. So that again, if you have the time, like I talk to a lot of investors that don't have a job, they just like want to do investing full time. That's great. I mean, you could do it all then. Hopefully you have the big budget where you can invest into the marketing platforms, and then you could just go to town. But you got to do it what works for you.
Yeah, I'm still trying to find that balance. Because I live all the way in South Shore, Nassau, and I invest South Shore, Suffolk County, from like Central Islip all the way out to Shirley, Riverhead. So just now I'm starting to try to delegate more and more and try to pick up more subcontractors to help out with the more of the everyday type of things.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and also like you have a kid. Like, do you watch them during the day? Like, what do you got to do? It works for you. Like, do you guys have like a babysitter? Like, how does that work? That seems like a lot of, because I have two now, and it's like you never get a second to yourself.
Yeah, I know. I can't imagine too. I can, but yeah, mine's at the age where he's running around, he's opening doors, he's just trying to do everything. He's like a little monster. And my wife works full time. We have a babysitter at the house during the day.
Oh, that's huge. That's huge.
Huge, yeah.
So, all right. So, what are you seeing in the market right now? Like, I know we're investing in the same areas. I'm seeing a lot of high asking prices, a couple price drops, but they're not budging.
Yep.
I'm putting in offers, and people are like, oh, no, I'll stay up here. But the properties are sitting longer and longer. So, I think we're in a weird time. I just wanted to know like what you saw in the market and like what you're experiencing.
Yeah, so I think it's we're in that transition time. It's definitely a weird time for both buyers and sellers. Sellers are still kind of stuck in 2021, and buyers are kind of already in 2023, assuming prices are going to fall a little bit. And then when you have them going together, it's like the sellers just don't want to budge just yet. They don't want to give up on their high asking prices, which I get. But it only takes one house to sell for a little less to disrupt all the other comps in the area, and then they'll start coming down. They'll bring down the average. But yeah, houses are definitely sitting longer. I've noticed that. The prices are still up there. Everybody loves to talk about a crash or prices coming down and things like that. And, I don't think we're going to see a crash by any means, but I do expect prices start to level off and come down slightly, maybe 10, 15%, if that. Because when you think about it, prices went up 35% since pre-pandemic, and they only come down 15. They're still up. They're still up at the end of the day, And it's Long Island real estate. It's still going to be in demand, even if the average home price across the country falls. Long Island's not going to fall as much as that, just because of how in demand it always is.
Yeah, so. It's tough to say. Like, I don't know how this ends. I mean, well, one, the rental rates are ridiculous. Like, so if prices came down, I don't see it, because in the markets that we're investing in, I should say, because I could see it come down a little bit, but at some point they're not going to go down that much, because I mean, as an investor, I can go Section 8 and just get $3,200 on a 3-bedroom. Like, that's ridiculous. So if they come down into the twos, it's like, why not just buy every property up and have a cash flow like crazy?
Yeah, why doesn't all these big players just scoop up literally everything?
Everything,
because the rents are so high, and I don't. Maybe they'll bring the rents down a little bit. I remember the president of CDC was on the call the other night. She did say that we're going to reevaluate the market early next year to see, I guess, if things fall. Maybe they'll bring the rates down a little bit. But, right now the 2023 version just came out. Remember that? I think you sent me, and
Yeah,
they went up
they're high.
again.
They're very high. Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, like, I don't know. I don't see it coming down that much. But then again, man, like there's countering. There's a couple things. There's like, I think maybe the appraisers are gonna be kind of forced to lower values from the banks because, like the rates have gone up so high. Like if you were buying a property for 700,000 like a year or two ago, and now the rates are almost doubled, right? They're like at seven something. That went up 4 points. So now, I mean, look at that. I mean, if your mortgage is 3,000, now it's 4,000. So all these buyers are going to back out. They're not going to be in that affordability range. So I don't know what happens. I don't know if it just compresses the low end stuff, and those prices keep coming up, or definitely the high end stuff is going to come down. That's I think for sure. That's like a foregone conclusion. So I really don't know. And then you heard the guy on the Marcus and Mill chat. He was on that call like 2 weeks ago, and that was like amazing. That was an amazing.
Oh yeah,
call.
he was great.
And he had all the data, and he made a very bullish case for owning real estate, particularly the affordability gap between renting and owning was never been higher. So what he's saying is, the prices have gone up. Like the cost of buying a house is so high right now that people are going to rent. It's going to drive rental rates up because that gap has never been higher. So in order to close it, the rental rates will come up, which they're already high.
Yeah, he completely squashed the argument that realtors try to say, why rent a house when you could own one? Because it's just not the case. There's so many other expenses that come with owning a house.
Yeah, 100%.
And liability and responsibility. It's just not even, and like you just said, the gap has never been this big.
Yeah, I think we're going to see there is the rental rates will come up because of it. And like when that gap is so high, what he's saying is like, it might have made sense at some point and a lot of times throughout history to own homes over the long term. But I think over the long term, he's saying like, it's not, it's like very expensive.
You got to really hold on to it.
Can rates come down? Yeah, rates can come down. I get it, and you can refinance and stuff. But
yeah, but
it just seems
you never know. Your rates, they'll come down eventually, but who knows when? It might not be years, and then you have to make sure you can afford that house at 7-8% right now for indefinitely until because you don't know how long until they come down. And I think prices are bound to come down just because that's the goal of raising the interest rates. It's just going to push them down. It's just a matter of time. But like I said, I don't think they're going to come down that much as people think. Definitely a little bit. And then, hopefully we start to see the rates ease up a little bit, and then they start coming down, and then we'll find that happy medium, and then we'll just be back at it again.
Yeah, but I think rates are going up still. Yes. That's the thing people aren't like talking about. I actually just got a text from my mortgage guy. He said the opposite. Right now, like the short term, they came down. But I think let's just look at it 2 to 3 years from now, or 2 years from now. The Fed is raising their rates, and even you can go on the meetings and hear what they're saying. They're like, listen, we're not. Their goal right now is to squash inflation. Inflation is no indication that it's going to come down right now. It's not. It's still at like 8%, 10%. Like that's very high. They want it in like the 3 range, right? Historically, it's like 2 to 3%. Even if they get it to 4%, that's a win. But so their only goal right now is to keep raising rates until they're able to get inflation under control. So if the federal funds rate's like maybe 4% and inflation's 8%, they're going to raise it until the interest rate's higher than inflation. It's not.
Exactly.
So inflation's not coming down, guys. So they're going to raise rates to like 8%. That's on the federal funds rate. That means your mortgage is going to be like 12% 2 years from now. I'm telling you, they're not going to lower rates anytime soon.
Yeah, not anytime soon. Eventually they will, is what I'm saying.
Eventually, absolutely.
Yeah, eventually, and then that's when we'll see the home prices. But that's why you can't expect to just buy a house now and plan to refinance because they could be raising rates for another couple of years.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think we're in agreement. Like what I'm trying to say is like the next 1 to 3 years or 2 to 3 years, like they're definitely going to keep raising rates, and it's definitely going to keep going up, and then it'll come down. But they have to, like, their only goal right now is to get rid of, like, or squash inflation, and there's no indication that that is going down. So unfortunately, they're just going to keep raising. So anyway, what do we know? I mean, listen, if you're listening to this as like market advice, don't listen to like an expert. We are not experts. But yeah, so I guess getting back to your real estate business. So what are some of the biggest, mistakes or failures that you made in your business so far? Because we've all made them.
Yeah. I would say, going back to my first property, I learned a ton. It was kind of like flipping college. I went through 5 plumbers on that job. I was paying my carpenter by the hour, which I don't recommend doing, which I don't do now. But yeah, and everything that went wrong, everything that could go wrong pretty much went wrong. Like I said, this house had a ton of mold. It was vacant for 7 years. Ton of mold, asbestos, underground oil tanks, just everything. And it was a full gut down to the studs. There wasn't water or electric connected to the street. So when I got there, I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting all of this, but I had a great carpenter who helped me along the way. I brought in some subcontractors. I hire out more subcontractors now. In the beginning, I put a lot of weight on my carpenter, but now I have trades for everything and we all work together, and it goes really smooth.
That's huge because like you're acting as the GC, which is good and bad, I guess, but it's good because you're like a business owner, so you know how to run it. Now, a lot of times when for example, you have to rely on the general contractors, or you know what I mean, like you're acting as it. So people like me who rely on that, you really got to invest in the right one because a lot of them are not good businessmen. They don't run businesses the way me and you would, and not as organized and things of that nature. So
Exactly.
it's very difficult. I think that's the hardest part of this business is really getting a good contractor, figuring out the contracting side of the business.
Yeah, and like I said, I still play general contractor on all my renovations. I'm slowly trying to bring my carpenter into that role going forward. That's what I've been working on the past couple of renovations.
Nice.
But I also want to say, so at that first job, actually, too, somebody fell off the roof and broke their arm.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, when we were doing the roof.
I hope they were insured. I hope you were insured.
Yeah, so they were insured, and also I had everybody's insurances. So that's another thing. You always want to get a copy of all your contractors' liability insurances, workers' comp insurances if they have any. But luckily that happened. He went through his, everything was all right, and that was it. But you never know with something like that.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to make sure they're insured. I mean, listen to your insurance guy. Like they'll tell you, you have to be added as an additional insured on their policy, just in case something like that happens. Like you said, they fall, they break their whatever, then they're coming after you. So
yeah. Also, just little things, like when you have all the walls open, you might want to take pictures of all your new electrical and plumbing before you close everything up. So 10 years down the road, when you forget about this renovation, you can refer back to your pictures and say, oh, we can connect this to this, or we have some plumbing over there, or whatever the case is.
Interesting. Yeah, that's pretty clever. I didn't even think of that.
Mm-hmm.
So you learn those things. So what are some of like the biggest challenges that you're facing right now in your business? Cause, I know you got the contractor stuff figured out. So what's going on in your business now that maybe you're challenged with?
Yeah, so I'm actually still trying to figure out the contractor stuff. I mean, I have my team in place, but like I said earlier, I'm trying to delegate more so I don't have to drive an hour and a half east as much. So more like the day-to-day things. I'm trying to bring my team into all these different roles now. kind of take my place, to try to take me out of it a little bit and to work more on the business from out here, you know.
Yeah, no,
Things
that's smart. I mean, listen, you gotta do like what makes sense for your business. Like right
Yeah.
now, you don't have, we both don't have the business where, we're doing 3 deals a month, flips and
Yeah.
rentals. Like, you know what I mean? So when you're at that level, that's when you have to worry about just lead gen and all that kind of stuff. You get your team in place to really manage because you can't do this stuff. We both talked with like people in our group like Ralph that, he'll even tell you straight up like you can't be doing once you get to that level, you can't be going to check on your properties, making sure no one's broken, checking on the work, and then also getting the lead gen. So it's just too much work for one person. So,
It's
yeah,
just
once
too
you
much.
figure
Yeah.
out like your team, once they're in place, and like I said, you could rely on that guy to be like a project manager. That's huge.
Yeah, yeah. Because right now, all my renovations, I've done everything. From sourcing the deal to playing general contractor to leasing it out to property management going forward. So literally every step.
Okay.
But now I work with more agents, trying to
Yeah.
bring my carpenter into the role. I have someone who does my inspections. I do quarterly inspections on all my rentals. Some people say that's a little much. Some like it. I like it. It shows the tenant that we care about the property. Things are going to be fixed.
Yeah.
And I get to pop in more often just to see what's going on and just to stay on
No,
top
it's
of
huge.
everything.
I'll give you an example, and I do it like at least 3 times a year. I don't
Yeah.
think I have like a system yet where I'm like, all right, we're coming on April 30th, every
Yeah.
3 months. But yeah, like I'll give you an example. I went there for one in the end of like September. It was like September, the beginning of September, I should say. And if I didn't go there, this wasn't going to be fixed. But there was like an issue, like the water was getting behind it was leaking, like the shower head was leaking, right? They didn't know that though. They're like, oh, there's water everywhere. This is all like discolored, or what should I say? Like this is all soft, the wall. But if I didn't go there,
Yeah.
they would have just kept it like it would have been still been getting wet, and it just would have been an issue, and it would have led to more issues down the road. Who knows if it would have eroded and ate away at the wood underneath it, and then have to replace the whole bathroom. I mean, God forbid something like that happened. But you know what I mean? Like you check on your things every couple months, and they'll tell you like, yeah, this is leaking, this is wrong, and you fix these things. You don't got to fix everything. I mean, there's a line, there's a line to where they're kind of pushing it, pushing their luck. But
Oh,
there are
yeah.
legitimate things that you have to fix, and you
Yeah,
do.
sometimes like they don't tell me that something's wrong until I go to schedule the inspection with them. So then they'll
Right.
bring it up and say, "Oh, by the way, this blah blah blah." But yeah, just like what you said, a leak that lasts 3 months, you can catch it, you can fix it, and that'll be it. But if you let that go for 12 months, it could be a bigger issue.
Yeah, so and people that think this is like this passive income thing, like people that get in this business, and I guess I was one of them. They don't understand this is not a passive business. Like even if you have rental properties, even if you hire a management company, it's not passive. You're still managing that person who's managing it for you.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work still. It's not a passive business. I mean, I guess you could potentially say it. Maybe if you're on the lending side, it could be passive. I guess you could say, but you
Yeah,
still,
yeah.
it's never going to be at a point where it's like you put money into a bond and the bond just pays you every month. Like literally, like the stock market is legit passive. Like you just sit back and do
Yeah.
nothing. This is a little more labor intensive, but you can get it somewhat passive, I guess you could say. But not when you're starting out, man. Not when you're me and you. It's a lot of work.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because there's just so much that goes into it, and then as far as tenant relations, and
Yeah.
like you said, you can hire a property management company, but one, they're probably not going to manage it as good as you are,
Yeah.
and then you still have to manage them. And if things go sideways with the tenant, at the end of the day, it's your problem.
It comes out of your pocket. And the problem with property management companies, in my view, is that the incentives are all screwed up. They get paid, a percentage of the rent regardless of how they manage it. Yeah, I guess you could say that, well, they'll be fired if they do a bad job. Sure. But they're also incentivized to repair your property more often because they have to, if they fix something, they get paid for that. They get paid as like a, I don't know if maybe like as the landlord you have to pay them, but they get discounts from the vendees. You know what I mean? They're going to charge you, $150 to do like to put a light bulb in, but it costs them like $20 or whatever, $50 or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's revenue for them. So the more renovations there are, the more, I should say repairs there are, they get paid. Also, they get paid on the renovation side. So like if there's like a project, they get like a management fee to manage that work. They also get paid if there's a refinance, if there's a sale, they get a cut of everything. So their incentives are so screwed up against your incentive as the investor. So
because the property management companies really don't make that much money. They if they just collect the rent and charge you whatever they're charging you, 7-10% every month, they're not really making anything. So yeah, that's totally true.
Yeah, so I don't know. I haven't, listen, I'm not at that level yet where I need to bring on a property manager, but when I do, I got to figure something out because, maybe the answer is creating your own property management company and hiring your own employees and having systems, but then that's a whole other business you're creating. And like you said, it's not a big ROI business or ROT, return on time. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's interesting. It's a good conversation to have.
Yeah. I don't have a problem managing my properties now. I enjoy it. I don't have that many, so it's not like overwhelming or anything like that. But I do plan to continue managing them the more I get. And I'm not looking to take on any employees right now, but I am looking for, like consistent subcontractors and more contract work where just to sub these things out, kind of acting like employees.
Well, I'm sort of figuring that out now in my business. I have all my tasks, drawn out. I have, 2 pages worth of, all the tasks in my business. And most of them are me, it's all me doing that stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like, I got to figure out a way to sub it all out without, I'm not in a position right now to be hiring people. Because again, a lot of that could be done by an employee. But, I'm utilizing things like Fiverr and contractors, like, things that people get paid like as an independent contractor. I'm trying to figure out ways to just sub everything out because right now it's too much work for one person who works full time, has 2 kids, so I'm more fit. I think I'd work better as more of a manager at this point and just manage the business and work on lead gen and focus strictly on that. And have the rest of the business just kind of like work on its own.
I agree. Do you have
with me managing it? Hmm?
Yeah, I agree. Are you working with any virtual assistants?
Not in the sense from a employer perspective, right? Because I did consider the whole Philippine, bringing on someone from there, and I still might do it at some point. You're right, but I really have to identify like with all the tasks I have now. I think bringing on someone for 40 hours I'd have too much capacity, but not enough, tasks to do.
Yeah.
So I don't see the value. I don't want to see value. I do see value in it, but it just seems like a waste having other excess capacity.
Yeah.
More at some point,
work.
Yeah, but when I start doing other things and maybe bringing on more marketing channels, whatever it is, I will certainly bring someone on. But I utilize like Fiverr VAs, right? So I'll pay someone like for a week of their time or even just a day of their time.
Oh yeah, that's great.
It's very inexpensive. It's maybe $50 or something for a day, and they can go do like legit like hours of work that I would have done myself, but I don't have the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's pros and cons with that. I think you got to trust the person, make sure they're not stealing valuable information, things of that nature. So there's definitely risk there, but yeah, I'm just right now trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
So do you use any of that stuff like Fiverr?
No, not right now.
Upwork. I think Upwork's another one.
No. I mean, I have used things in the past for like designs for like flyers and postcards and things like that. Kind of just like one-off things, kind of like what you're talking about. But yeah, that's really it.
Yeah, because I'll give you like one example. My next thing that I'm going to start outsourcing, like I go through all my offers and I'll follow up with people and see like, did that sell? Did it not sell? I got to call this guy back. There's a bunch of tasks like that takes time. It take me half an hour to an hour just to do that. So, or maybe longer. So something like that, I got to figure out. Like I could probably outsource that to someone, and then they could say, all right, Mike, here are the 5 deals you put an offer in on. We don't know the status, but call John, call Mary, call Beth, whatever it is, and this way I can just look at it like, all right, here's the 5 numbers. I can make 5 phone calls during my lunch break, whatever, and whatever after work or something.
Yeah.
But it could be done, and it saves me an hour or two.
Exactly.
That I don't have. So stuff like that you got to figure out. Listen, the way I do it, it's not the same way you're going to do it. The way you do it, it's not the same way some other investor's going to do it. But you got to do what makes sense for you as the investor. Now it leads into my next question. So, do you have any advice for someone new who's a new investor just starting out? They might be watching this, like they don't know what to do. Any advice for them on how to start their business?
Yeah. So I would say the number one thing is just persistence, and just stick with it. It's not always going to be fun. It's not always going to work, especially in the beginning when you're not that experienced, but your success will come if you just stick with it. It's just bound to happen.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to look on the MLS for deals, especially when you first get started. Get started with something a little more comfortable, Set yourself up to win on that property, Like I said, my first property was beyond what I was thinking. But purchase something that maybe doesn't need such a big rehab, Maybe you have to replace the kitchen or the floors or little cosmetic things, where you can get it up, you can develop somewhat of a team, and you can learn the process, get it rented, and then start collecting that cash flow and move on to the next one, And then as you get more experienced, take on more experienced renovations and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, like the MLS thing, I think people just got to do it because, you might get a deal. It's potentially, you might not, but what you're doing is you're building credibility with people that are in the industry. And these are real estate agents. Some of them are new just like you, but some of them are very experienced and they get a lot of deal flow. And if you're calling them and putting offers on their deals, that person never would have known who the hell you were if you didn't call them. Now they do, and now you're building a credibility, because now listen, you are, hey, you're Mike, you're Dennis, and Dennis buys in this area. And he's legit. When he put in offers on 3 of my properties, he didn't necessarily get them, but I know he's legit, and he's been around for a while. So you're building that credibility with these realtors. So that's a huge thing right there.
Yeah, like you don't need to hit a home run, especially on your first deal. You just get a couple base hits, and every once in a while you get a home run where it's just it's a great deal.
Yeah.
But when you get that first one, and you're in the middle of a renovation, I would just recommend, having realtors even stop by your renovation. I did this a lot when I was first starting. Like I would have an empty house, and just by inviting realtors over and just saying, oh, this is what I do, this is what I'm going to do here and here. I'm looking for houses just like this, in this, and this area. It just skyrockets your credibility, because you're actually doing it. It doesn't matter if you.
Yep.
They don't really know if you've done 20 renovations or if this was your first one. As long as you act like you've been there before, and you have an idea of what you're talking about, they'll take you seriously.
100%. Like when I had my rental, I hosted like a workshop with investors and all kinds of people.
Great.
And I'm going to do it at the next one. I'm going to keep doing it. I think it's great. I think and plus people love that stuff, man. Like there's no one doing that in the market. There's I should say that there's a couple of guys they post like workshops and stuff at their properties, but I don't know. I shouldn't say no one's doing it, but there are people. But I think it's great because like people generally aren't doing stuff like that. And like a new there's so many people out there. They're stuck in their day job. They see all the YouTube videos about being a real estate investor. They want to be a real estate investor. They want to get involved somehow. And they live on Long Island. And guess what? Oh, Mike's having a workshop at his rental property. And he's going to go over all the numbers and like how you could invest on Long Island. what he's doing, and a lot of people see that and they'll do it. Like I sold out in like 15 minutes. I put a little thing on like Eventbrite and I posted on my Instagram. It was like sold out so fast. So ridiculous demand. I think it's a great thing. Builds credibility too, like you said. But for new investors though, I would kind of touch on what you were saying. Like I think getting into rentals could be one of the best things, as opposed to like doing a flip. So like I wanted to get into flips. I know you got into a flip, but it all worked out. But I wanted to get into flipping and wholesaling when I first started. And Carl explained, the reasons why I should probably consider doing rentals. And like, there's a lot of reasons, really. If you don't sell, if you don't hit your numbers, as one example, like you're just going to lose money on a flip. But on a rental property, you might be able to absorb that. If you go over 10,000 on a rehab, not the end of not the end of the world. Like you could just make the money back. If it's in a 30-year mortgage, you're going to make your money back over time. So it's not as risky there.
100%.
And then what if you have like a bad contractor and you did a flip and the renovations suck and the inspector comes in, tears the place apart and says, this is horrible, it's got to get redone. The guy knows what he's doing. He did the plumbing all wrong. You got to redo all that stuff. Like, are you kidding me? So I think it's very risky. Like if you're doing a rental, like it's not the end of the world if they don't do the finishes as nice. I know it sounds bad, but like it's the reality. Like if it's just a rental property, it doesn't have to, it's just a place that I'm not saying do shitty renovations. Like I do good renovations on my properties, but it's something to think about. Like if you go with a contractor and he's not the best, you're
You can always
not going to be
fix
as,
it.
you can always fix it. Yeah. Like when a tenant moves out or something like that.
Yeah. I think
But
the
in a
thing
flip,
is
it's a
just-
different story.
Yeah, because like just what you were saying with the flip, you got to know your numbers. You can get stuck between market transitions, just how we are now, or who knows. But with the rental, as long as your numbers work out, that you're going to cash flow at the end of the day, you really can't lose. Until you sell it, if you even ever do sell it, just like the stock market. Like if it drops down, you're not going to lose your money as long as you plan on holding on to it for X amount of years. Just it's gonna go up again eventually, and that's the whole market cycle. But I think the biggest thing is just getting started and seeing what it's like.
Yeah, and I think it's like education. Get the education, like work with someone like Carl, and that's the thing. I don't think the education is you're gonna get it all on YouTube and reading books. And you might. That's maybe like 40% of it, or probably less, to be honest with you. But it's, for me at least, not everyone's like me, but for me, I needed the mentor. I needed the mentorship. It was really like an accountability / business coach / real estate coach. I think he's great for me. I love working with Carl, but I think people should get someone like that, because you just don't know. There's so many angles and things, and you really just need that focus in the beginning and that drive, and you just got to keep doing the persistence, like you were talking about. Those are all important things, I think, when you're first getting started.
Yeah. Like I'm not much of a YouTube guy. I don't think I went on YouTube once during my process of finding the property and renovation and all that. The way I learn is just by jumping in and doing it hands on, and making those mistakes, and just learning experiences for next time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I got a lot of good things to say about coaching. It's been very beneficial for me, and I certainly recommend it. But listen, not everyone's has the same views, and it is what it is. It's totally fine. But last question. So what are some of your goals, and what are you doing to achieve them? Do you do like the SMART goals and things of that nature?
Yeah, I do. I do the SMART goals. So, I guess my goal right now is to supplement my ironworker income with my cash flow from the rentals. So, I was making decent money ironworking. I don't make as much with these rental properties right now, but obviously my net worth has gone up because of owning all these assets now.
Right.
But in time, eventually, I'd like to supplement my ironworker income. That's the goal. What I'm trying to aim for now.
Okay. No, listen, I think there's value there with the time. You're freed up of the time, so
Yeah,
there's value, and yeah, you might not be making as much, but it's okay, man, because you know, one, your net worth is going, it's exploding, and you will replace that income, but you have the time to focus, and I think that's huge.
exactly. Like I get to do things like this with you at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you know. And like I met somebody the other day in Long Beach at a cafe in the middle of the day just to network, and we had egg sandwiches. You know, I would never
Nice,
be able to do things like that.
nice,
So
that's awesome.
just all that.
All right, man. No, that's good stuff. All right, so do you want to leave like your contact information? How can people reach out to you?
Yeah. I say I'm most active on Instagram at Dennis Kelly PMG. Um, I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn, but yeah, I would say Instagram is my number one right now.
Okay.
So yeah, you can just shoot me a DM there, and I'm always up to network, to meet up at different renovations and things like that. You can go over some things, and yeah,
Awesome. All right, man. I appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks so much. And I mean, that's a wrap.
thank you.